Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jayatu Jayatu Devo Devaki Nandanoyam, Jayatu Jayatu Krishno Vrishnivansha Pradipaha, Jayatu Jayatu Megha Shamala Komalanga.
Namaste. The story I've chosen is a story of divine friendship. Krishna is perhaps the most loved of all Indian deities. He's compassionate, tender and kind. He's a musician, very rarely seen without his flute, and he wears a peacock feather on his head. Krishna went to a Gurukula school, and there he met a boy who was to become a lifelong friend. This was Sudama. One day their guru told them to go to the forest to collect firewood, and off they went. And while they were there, a storm blew over, thunder and lightning, and the boys sheltered from the storm. And they realized they were hungry. Krishna hadn't brought any food, but Sudama had brought a few flakes of rice. And without a second thought, he shared the rice with his mate. When they got back to the school, the guru was delighted at the way they'd handled themselves and come back with firewood. Many years later, Krishna was a famous king living in a beautiful palace of marble. Sudama, on the other hand, preferred the humble spiritual life and lived with his wife in a small cottage without many worldly things and without too much food. So much so that Sudama became quite thin, and his wife was worried about his health, and constantly got on to Sudama about, why don't you visit your mate Krishna? He's wealthy, he'll give us something, he'll help us. And Sudama was a little bit loath to do that because he believed that friendship was friendship and you shouldn't really be asking for things. He didn't need that kind of charity. His wife persisted. And eventually Sudama thought, well, I haven't seen my friend for a long time, so it would be nice to go and visit him. So one day he decided to set out and visit the palace where Krishna lived. And his wife reminded him that you can never go to see a friend without taking a gift. But what to take? They lived in a poor house with no possessions. But she did have a few flakes of rice left. And he wrapped them in a plain white muslin cloth and set out to visit Krishna. And he arrived at the gates of Krishna's palace, and the guards, recognising a spiritual man, allowed him to go in. And there, waiting to greet him, was his old friend Krishna, who was delighted to see Sudama. And he put over him a garland, gave him a beautiful cloak, and then bent down to wash his feet in welcome. Sudama had the gift with him, but was a little bit reticent to give it because it was only a bit of rice. Krishna, on the other hand, was excited to know what his friend had brought for him, and almost took it off him and opened it and saw that it was flaked rice, and immediately remembered their time in the forest when Sudama had shared his little bit of food with him, and he was delighted. They talked about times gone by, they renewed their friendship, and it was a wonderful meeting between the two. So much so that Sudama forgot to ask what he'd come for, forgot to ask for help. And on the way home wondered how he might explain this to his wife, that the friendship had been enough without the request for charity. And as he neared his humble cottage, he saw that it was a humble cottage no more, that it had been turned into a palace of his own. And Sudama and his wife lived in quite luxurious circumstances for the rest of their lives. I think on the face of the story of Krishna and Sudama is a very simple story, but it's got a universal message. First of all, it's about friendship, of course. Unconditional friendship. Not relying on you can give me this and you can give me that, but a pure and honest affection for one another. It's also about giving and the importance of giving. Not the quality of the gift. You give what you can, and then the giving becomes more important than the gift itself. It's a story of loyalty to friends as well, and remembering friends and the affection that you had for one another in the past. It's just as I said at the beginning, a very simple story about friendship, perhaps unlikely friendship, a friendship of a wealthy man and a poor man, and vice versa, and the love that they have for one another. I hope you enjoyed that lovely story. I think it proves as well sometimes that the simple stories are the best ones. Namaste.